Good morning, AP Econ. Today we are going to talk about why monopolies are inefficient. Notice again that you're going to have module 62 as your homework assignment. And then we'll start off by we're doing a multiple choice question, but it's really just to make sure that you guys understand the concept as are due now. Okay, so I'll switch to a pen. All right, so it says if the firm produces 10 units of output, which we know that they would produce because they're going to go and produce where MR equals MC. So we know that they're going to produce there, but they're not going to charge $10. All right, they are going to go and charge $20 because we're going to go up to that demand curve, and that's the price that we are going to charge. So again, MR equals MC is our output, and then again we go up to the demand curve to get the price that they're going to charge. All right, very, very important. All right, where it hits the ATC curve, is going to be our cost. All right, so it says if the firm produces 10 units of output, it's economic profit. So also don't forget economic profit. So first of all, it's total revenue minus total cost equals total profit. All right, so in this case, the total revenue would be the 200 times the 10. So that would be the 200. Total cost would be 15 times the 10, which would be 150. So total profit would be 50. Okay, next slide. Okay, so hopefully you guys have the notes and you guys are able to do this alongside with me. All right, so again, remember that in order for a firm to sell more in a monopoly, it must lower its price. So we're going to see what happens to total revenue. First, let's go and calculate total revenue. We'll put little dashes there. All right, so again, as we go and we lower the price from 16 down to 15, we're able to sell one. So total revenue would be $15. And then again, if we want to sell two, we've got to lower the price again to 14. So this would be $28, and so on and so forth. $39, $48, $55, $60, $63, $64, and then again $63. Okay, so again, that's going to be your total revenue. How we go about calculating marginal revenue is again the difference between the two. All right, so each time the difference between the two. So I'll put that in my actual red. All right, so again, this was 15. So as we went from 0 to 15, then as we go from 15 to 28, it's 13. 28 to 39 is 11. 39 to 48, 9. 48, and hopefully you guys are seeing this quite consistent pattern. 3, 1, and then, -1. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. So again, hopefully, sorry if I did that super quick, but we're going to need these numbers to do the next thing we are going to do on the next slide. So make sure you fill this out. Okay, so if you did the chart on the last page, you're going to have all the same numbers that I have here. So again, I said plot the demand, marginal revenue, and total revenue curves. So you guys would see, and I'm actually going to go and kind of do it as like a little highlighter. If you were to go and do all of these curves, again, you would end up with your marginal revenue being there. And I'll go and maybe identify that better. Maybe I'll do, this was your marginal revenue. That would be your demand curve. So again, that being the case. And then for your total revenue curve, notice that it comes up here, it peaks, and then what you guys would see would start to happen is that it would actually just come all the way down. What's really important for you guys to notice, even though mine's not really perfectly aligned, I probably could have moved it over a little bit, because this is supposed to be aligned a little bit differently, but it will make a little bit more sense on the next slide. So once you guys go and plot these, it's important, again, if you want to use the ones that I have that are completely filled out because of a point that I'm trying to prove to you guys, it'll probably be better on the ones that are like perfect. But again, if you plotted them and maybe you spent a little bit more time than I did just doing it, you'll see it on the next slide, because we're going to see that these curves are actually important in understanding where a monopolist would produce and where they wouldn't produce. So you guys are going to see that we're going to go back to that concept of the elastic and inelastic range for your demand curves. And if you guys forgot that, we're going to do the total revenue test. And I've got a fun way of remembering that if you forgot. Okay, so here is my much more graphically scaled or more perfectly scaled demand, marginal revenue, and total revenue curve. And again, notice that it says, again, what happens to total revenue when MR hits 0? So at this point right here, and maybe I'll go and make it red. All right, at this point right here, what's happening? And we're going to see that our total revenue is at its peak when the marginal revenue curve hits 0. All right, so that's going to be really important. All right, for us to understand that from that point on, though, our marginal revenue is actually going to be negative, or again, because our total revenue is going to be decreasing. All right, so that's important. So notice again, on this side of the demand curve, as the price goes down, total revenue goes up, and then as we hit 0 for our marginal revenue, or that peak in our total revenue, as price goes down, our total revenue goes down. So that's part of that total revenue test, which will be on the next. Okay, so in case you forgot, I employed a tiny little helper. So if you guys remember, you stand with your arms out like this, all right? And then we did the scenario where if the price falls, all right, and your total revenue goes up, that it's elastic. And then again, if your price falls and your total revenue falls, then the demand is inelastic. So again, if you guys remember, I made you guys stick your hands out and then move your arms around. And again, if you make this letter, sorry, I'm drawing over you, Mookie. But if you draw, and again, it looks like an I, where again, that's the whole idea. I guess a capital I, who shouldn't have that. I think you get the point. Now I feel guilty. I can't do that to my child. Sorry. At least not over that face. But I think you guys get that concept, at least. So again, and what we're seeing on the graph right here, all right, is again the total revenue going up, and then again what we see, and again because that's in the elastic range, and then again now we see in the inelastic range total revenue going down, negative marginal revenue at that point. A monopoly will only produce in the elastic range. So in this green point, they would not produce there. All right, when they're experiencing negative marginal revenue, or when they're experiencing decreasing total revenue. It wouldn't make any sense. And if we also remember too, I gave you guys a really just very, very memorable, all right, to remember that this is going to be the elastic part and this is going to be the inelastic part of your demand curve. And again, this would be like your unitary. And I said, eat up, idiots. All right, so again, that was trying to remind you that it was elastic, on to the left, unitary in the mid, right, smack dab in the middle, and then inelastic towards the right of that demand curve. All right, so just fun ways to remember things. All right, so now let's discuss why monopolies are different from perfectly competitive firms in terms of both output and price. For a perfectly competitive firm, they would go and produce where supply equals demand. Remember that they're price takers. All right, so where supply equals demand, this would be, again, the price in a perfectly competitive firm. And then here would be our output in a perfectly competitive firm. All right, I'm gonna make it, there we go. That might be better for you to see. Whereas, again, in a monopoly, we'll go green. For monopoly, we know that the output that they are going to produce is going to be where MR equals MC. So here's Q for a monopoly, but we're not going to charge that price. We're going to go up to the demand curve and then go over, and then that's the price the monopolist would charge. If you guys remember us talking about this idea of consumer and producer surplus, hopefully that's a concept that you haven't forgotten. All right, so again, previously, and I know that I have this already, but again, doesn't hurt, but I'm going to try to do it from here, right? Supply, all right, and demand, that we maximized, again, when we use the market price, when there's no interventions. I'll make this a little bit smaller. All right, so again, this was the price that we charged. So this was consumer surplus, and that this was producer surplus. And notice again that there's no dead weight loss, no inefficiencies. When there's a monopoly, they underproduce and they overcharge, which decreases consumer surplus and increases producer surplus. So that's the main point of why we're going to say that their monopolies, I should say, are inefficient. Again, perfectly competitive is efficient. We maximize consumer surplus and we maximize producer surplus. There's no dead weight loss. But there is dead weight loss in a monopoly because, again, they underproduce and they overcharge. That's the problem. All right, so here are your notes explaining how monopolies are inefficient. So again, a couple of reasons. Again, we know that they charge a higher price. That we were able to see. Again, we go up to that demand curve, and we know that it reduces the amount of consumer surplus. They also are not efficient in the two ways that we've discussed efficiency. They're not allocatively or productively efficient. So when we say that they're not allocatively efficient, that means that they don't produce enough. So again, the products, and again, even coming down here, the products being produced are not the ones most desired by society. No over or under production. So again, they're underproducing. That's why we don't have allocative efficiency. And then they also produce at higher costs. So again, products are not being produced in the least costly way, and you guys will see what that means when we're actually looking at the graph. The main point of this is that monopolies are inefficient because they produce too little, but they charge too much. I'm going to say that over and over again. They produce too little and they charge too much. That's the main point of why monopolies are inefficient. Okay, so now that we're actually looking at a graph, and you guys, we've done this before, it says, are monopolies productively efficient? And they are not producing at the least or the minimum of the ATC, which would be somewhere around there. All right, so if price were to equal ATC, then that would be them being productively efficient, but they don't. They produce where MR equals MC, and then again going back up to this, and then again they go up to that demand curve to get the price that they would charge. So here's the output, there's the price, again probably 6, I think we did this yesterday, 6, that would be your cost for that. Notice though, and this is kind of what I want you guys to see if you didn't see this previously, and I'll do it in black. I want you guys to see the dead weight loss. Transactions that should be occurring that are not occurring. Right? Because remember that your MC is like your supply curve anytime it's above the AVC, which I know isn't even on this. All right? So again, where your supply equals demand is going to be important. You guys, I'll show you guys on the next one when we talk about allocative efficiency. So coming back, now we're talking about allocative efficiency. So again, producing essentially where supply equals demand, having the market speak. So going back to this, that your MC equals supply and your demand. So again, we should be producing here. That's what would make sense. if this were a perfectly competitive market structure, but it's not. So again, where they're going and producing is going to be right here. That's the output that they'd produce, go up to the demand curve and then go over. They're going to charge a higher price and they're going to produce less, right? The price does not equal the marginal cost. Again, if it did, then we would say that they're allocative efficiency because they're producing where supply equals demand, but they're not, which is why they're inefficient. And again, we experience, even though I know this is the exact same question, I'm just trying to show you guys, dead weight loss, transactions that could be occurring that aren't occurring. All right, almost done. So I just have these 2 questions for you guys. If you guys could just answer them in the discussion the way that we did it like a couple days ago. So again, if you guys could just number 1, number 2, whatever your answer is, A, B, C, D, and then just give me a 1 sentence so that I know that you understood the stuff that we did here today, discussing the elastic versus inelastic, discussing efficient versus inefficient and why monopolies are deemed inefficient. Those 2 main reasons are going to be most important. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good day.